The CodeOcean API allows you to do many of the common CodeOcean UI functionalities programmatically, allowing you to really easily scale and automate common computational workflows. So a typical end-to-end computational workflow in CodeOcean looks something like this, where you have raw data that's collected maybe off a sequencing system or a scanner and pushed to S3. Then you create a data asset for that data in CodeOcean and process it using some standardized pipeline. That processed data is then shared with others for downstream analysis, maybe in their preferred cloud workstation, or through visualization in their favorite no-code application. Now, if you have a standardized pipeline where you're constantly collecting new data and processing it in the exact same way, you might want to automate that workflow, which is a perfect use case for the CodeOcean API. And so that's what we're going to take a look at in this recording. We are going to create a data asset from an S3 location and then process that data using a standardized RNA sequencing pipeline. Once that pipeline completes, we will create a data asset from the result and then share that result with others for downstream analysis. Here's a quick look at the pipeline we'll be running. This is an RNA sequencing pipeline, which takes raw sequencing files as input and generates a counts matrix. Each step in this pipeline is its own capsule, and this pipeline runs on AWS Batch, meaning it's really easy to parallelize the execution of every step in this pipeline. The inputs to this pipeline are 3 different data assets, and there's also parameters for every single capsule in the pipeline. Here we'll be using the CodeOcean SDK, which is the Python implementation of the CodeOcean API, and you can see it installed as a pip package in this capsule. Here we're using the API in this capsule with our access token attached as a custom key secret. But you can use the CodeOcean API from anywhere so long as you have your access token. And the automated workflow that we'll be walking through today is written in this Jupyter notebook. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Jupyter Lab so we can step through the notebook together. Now that we're in Jupyter Lab, I can go ahead and open up our notebook. And we can start by importing all of the necessary packages. Then we can configure the client. And really the first step of this automated workflow is to actually create the data asset from S3. We'll be creating it from this bucket and this path within the bucket. So I can run this cell, and this is about a 10 gigabyte data asset. So it's going to take a few minutes to create, but once it's created, we'll know that the data asset state is right. So we'll come back when that's created. Now that data asset creation has completed, I can navigate to my data dashboard. If I refresh the page, we will see that we've now created our new data asset from the S3 bucket or S3 location that we had specified. So back to our notebook, we can go ahead and run the next cell, which is actually to run the pipeline that I showed earlier using that data as input. I'll point out that the pipeline had many different parameters for each capsule. You can also specify those parameters programmatically through the API. So we start by running this cell. And if we go back to our pipeline and refresh the page, we can see that the pipeline run has started. So we'll come back when that's complete to finish the automation of this workflow, which is creating a data asset from the result of this computation. 30 minutes later, the pipeline run has completed, and we can proceed to the next step of the automated workflow, which is creating a data asset from the result of this computation. So back in the notebook, we can see that the computation is completed. And the next cell, we will be creating a data asset from the result of the computation by specifying the computation's ID. Now that the result data asset has been created, you go back to my data asset dashboard again and refresh the page. We see that we have our data asset of type result. We can open up this result, view any of the files, and also view the provenance. So firstly, we can see the pipeline that produced the result, the input data assets that we used. We can see we used the input data that was created through the API. We can also see parameters for any capsule in the pipeline. And we also see the lineage graph, just like we get for any result data asset in CodeOcean. Back in the notebook, we can complete the last step of this automated workflow, which is to share the result with any other scientists who might need to process that data or work with that data. So in this case, we are sharing it with Stephen, granting him owner permissions, and also sharing it with everyone in the organization and granting them viewer permissions. In this example, we saw how an end-to-end upstream processing workflow can be automated with the CodeOcean API by creating a data asset from S3, processing that data with a standardized pipeline, creating a data asset from the result of the computation, and sharing that result with scientists who need to access the data. In this example, we bounce between the UI and the notebook to show how the API affects the UI. But if the API was being used as part of a production workflow, this could be entirely scripted and even be used as part of an AWS Lambda function so that the API can be executed as soon as data hit an S3 bucket, for example. To learn more about how the API can be used to automate your workflows, you can check out our documentation or book a demo.